Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
The future of work 2030 and beyond anticipates a transformative era driven by automation, artificial intelligence, and remote working trends. This shift promises to reshape traditional job roles, introduce new skills and techniques of working, and adapting to evolving workplace dynamics. Exploring these changes offers insights into how industries and individuals can thrive in the coming decade and beyond. Hello listeners, you're tuned into the Vantage Influencers Podcast. I'm your host Susmita, and to explore the future of work 2030 and beyond, I have with me today Abhishek David. Abhishek is a research scholar at Indian School of Business and a leading HR thought leader focusing on organizational behavior, HR transformation, culture, and change management. Hello Abhishek, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Hi, Susmita. Nice to have you and speaking with Vantage Circle today about the areas which is very close to my heart, future of work. So looking forward to.
Thank you. So before we begin with the topic, Abhishek, could you please share a bit about your background as a research scholar and HR thought leader, particularly focusing on organizational behavior, HR transformation, culture, and change management?
So I come from a practice background. So when I say practice background, I have hands-on 17 years of HR experience and led multiple HR transformation projects at large-scale multinational firms operating at various businesses and across various territories. I've led multiple transformational journeys across, also moving forward and looking into change management initiatives like future of work, sustainability, how organizations can become more future focused, aligning with the ongoing changes in the HR practices. Also, keen interest I have around how does the whole AI, Gen AI, and the digital skill set, the digital mindset can be inculcated in the HR professionals to leverage on, to take the organization forward. Also, my individual research area, since I'm a doctoral student, intersection of HR and sustainability. I've also written papers on future of work, which was selected by Academy of International Business. My keen interest to work around belongingness, as well as the evolving landscape of work with the advent of future of work. Very recently, I was also recognized as top 25 influencers, HR influencers, as well as top 50 thought leaders by two different organizations, and looking forward to continue getting such accolades in and around my work areas and my research areas.
Yeah, so almost like 17 years or over 17 years of hands-on experience in HR, right?
Yes, and all of my 17 years experiences, if I would share, is not just in one areas of HR. So I've worked around in recruitment, I worked around in exec recruitment, I worked around in compensation and benefits, reward recognition field, and as well as in the HR business partnering role and operations and the digital transformation roles, tech enhancement. So worked almost every area of HR possible in my last 17 years.
Yeah. And particularly the topic of the future of work, unfolding in 2030 and beyond. So this topic, I think it interests you a lot, and that is why our topic today. So given your extensive experience, Abhishek, how do you foresee the future of work in the coming years, particularly within the UAE market?
So I see three key areas, where things are moving much more faster. And very, very fast paced, not just here in UAE, but across the globe.
Right.
But UAE in particular, we will talk about it after we cover these three elements.
Sure.
Primarily as a country, as Gulf, as GCC or UAE market is moving more towards the hyper automation,
Hmm.
and when it comes to workforce, more AI driven workforce structures.
AI-driven workforce. Right.
Yes. Um, um, the second area where we are growing and we are moving faster in UAE and in Gulf and GCC, and I think across the globe right now, more of a gig economy and the remote work concepts.
Hmm.
So this is another key focus where we are moving from a role-based or position-based model
Hmm.
to more and more task-based work models.
Yeah.
The third area of shift is primarily and very, very important that nowadays everyone is looking at a holistic experience and how the organizations focus on the well-being aspect, how
Hmm.
how we look at a job 360 view wherein you include the work-life balance, well-being element into it. So would like to talk in these three areas, and we'll unfold it as we will move into this discussion.
Yeah, and when you say about well-being aspect, it also includes flexibility and upskilling opportunities, right?
Precisely. I mean, when we talk about well-being aspect,
Hmm.
what we are talking primarily about that how is the overall well-being aspect leads to employee priorities and employers priorities around the holistic well-being. So
Yeah.
it could be your
Okay.
financial well-being, it could be your mental well-being. It's more inside out kind of approach.
Hmm.
And what are some of those innate element of well-being when it comes to an employee? You look at the mind, body, and soul concept. So how from a mind concept, like what are my creativity factors if I work for an organization?
Hmm.
What am I learning is more of a mind. Body is primarily around that. How long are my working hours? What are my break timings? Is the provided services are is the provided services and ergonomics in my office are more healthier? Is my environment healthy where I'm working? And also soul, am I aligned in terms of my purposes, values to the organizational purposes and values? So uh, emphasis is definitely that alignment as well.
Hmm. So it's an overall thing, basically.
Yes, so it's a 360 view of a job.
360 view of thriving in an organization.
Yes, as well as an employee sitting in that chair, right? So job is not just the job, but it becomes more meaningful when an employee sitting on that position or on that chair is more engaged and happy and feel more belonged and feel safe. This is what is going to be a 360 view of an individual on that job.
Hmm. And now, if we look closer, and we see that organizations, as they navigate a transformative landscape, adopting proactive strategies for talent management becomes very increasingly crucial. For instance, I was going to a study, and that indicates that by 2030, the global talent shortage could reach by 85.2 million people. So that's a staggering statistic and a very major shortage of global talent. So it also emphasizes the importance of innovative approaches to attract and retain top talent, isn't it? So in this context, Abhishek, what approaches do you believe will be pivotal in attracting, retaining, and developing top talents in the years ahead?
So before we get into that, and I think I just missed one point here was
Sure.
that what within UAE specific happening around future of work,
Hmm.
like from a
Okay.
government perspective and the agenda of the country is
Hmm.
the four things which is key. Like we moved from a 4.5 day work week very, very recently, which primarily is about that how the organization and how the country wants to drive the whole agenda of well-being
Hmm.
and the work-life balance. We moved to a weekend structure from a Friday Saturday, to now a Saturday Sunday structure, which is more alignment to the global standards.
Global standard.
Yeah. So as a country, our national agenda of UAE ambition of a particular vision and initiative which has been initiated by the government. It's a 5-decade plan. It's called UAE Sentinel 2071, which started in 2021, basically, end of 2021, and which which primarily focuses on innovation, technology, and talent development. Constantly, our government is looking at the national program of AI. You would see the fourth industrial revolution related initiatives. You also see a lot of skill development prioritization happening in this part of the world, as well as the policy and the governance framework development on the other side. So a lot happening at this birth ground and of change, which is faster to adapt anything and everything which is going in the future of work. So UAE has been really very accommodative, and the changes has been seen fast paced. We do have our challenges, we do have gaps, we do have ethical considerations to look at, wherein the governance, the policymakers are working day in and night. Also, our adaptation to change, has really improved over the course of time. If we see these as challenges like skill gap, ethical consideration, and adaptation to change, I think we have, which is primarily future of work challenges. UAE has come up leaps and bounds in those.
Thank you, Abhishek, for sharing your insights on the dynamics of work within the UAE market. Yeah, as you were saying, my next question was on the approaches that you think will be important and pivotal in, attracting, retaining, and developing top talents in the years ahead.
So when we talk in this market, how do you attract a top talent? Because UAE as a market by and large is an expat-driven market, right? So our supply to skills and competence is higher compared to any part of the world. But getting into the newer generation in the workforce, looking at not just any talent but top talent for this market.
Right.
There is a requirement. There is those top talents looking at flexibility and autonomy, and as we were talking about the gig workforce and more flexible working setup, which is developing. So a lot of us would now see even the policy related changes around giving a remote worker as well a visa in this part of the world is another step to that process. That how do we want to attract these top talent in the country? We are also looking at providing world-class external and technology support. So as a country, how we are equipped to attract such talent is because we can provide high-speed internet facility anywhere possible. The availability of hotspots, the availability of co-working spaces, and they are enough and more in supply in our part of the world compared to any other country, which I would see. In terms of values, in terms of culture, in terms of flexibility in this country has really changed over the course of time to attract top talent from across the world.
Yeah.
Also compensation and benefit and rewarding and recognition, which is been changing very fast when I take example of HR. So we've seen in last 2 to 3 years the folding new eras of compensation and benefit, a new era to reward employees, and looking at more individual focused reward and recognition mechanism.
Yeah.
And that's how we are also looking at retaining them, right?
So did you also mention about embracing a culture of continuous learning and investing in personalized development and a growth mindset?
Precisely. So when we talk about retaining talent, we are talking about not just giving them a space to work, but giving them some meaningful work, opening the space from the sense of belongingness, right? We also talk on the other side of it, which is not just making them comfortable in their own job, but providing them more opportunity to grow and learn. From a learning perspective, from development perspective, we are moving more towards an hyper personalized learning culture. We are moving more lesser of a classroom and more of a mentoring, coaching, on the job kind of a thing happening in the organizations. More of a formal courses compared to more of a synchronous and asynchronous learning. More of recognizing and rewarding development initiative to the staff. Like, those who are not looking at a monetary rewarding and recognition, we primarily looking at rewarding and recognizing them through better development opportunities across.
Okay, so it's a very multifaceted approach needed for talent management, right? And each aspect holds equal significance in the cutthroat talent market. So, Abhishek, shifting gears a bit, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, as we say, have become a very central theme in discussions about the future workplace. So, how do you see these factors influencing talent management and leadership development strategies moving forward?
So diversity, equity, and inclusion are the central theme right now, as you said, and it is more of an external factors along, right? And all of these external factors which drives diversity, equity, and inclusion should primarily drive belongingness in an individual. And whether I'm able to drive that or not, that depends, and that's different for different individuals. And how do we drive that level of belongingness through talent programs, through leadership development, is a key element, and which I constantly talk about, and also I've been writing about, is that if I have to retain and attract my top talent, I need to create a level of belongingness within him so that he can work with this diverse and inclusive workforce, so that I can create the attraction and retain my top talent within the organization. So what are my attraction points which will drive that individual to completely get into the team, to the organization, and to the culture? So it's very, very important. How do I bring that individual, draw that individual into the organization culture? The second key important point is that if diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to drive innovation and creativity, what we are looking at it is how my talent management and leadership program can foster and create those experiential learning elements for these top talents so that they can innovate better, so that they can create an environment and culture of creativity and innovation in the organization. The third key element is that how my talent programs drive a level of engagement and motivation so that it further leads to better productivity and performance. So everything what I'm talking about right now, like if I'm attracting somebody, if I'm driving innovation, creativity, if I'm improving productivity and performance, anything in and around diversity, equity, and inclusion driven through talent management and leadership should drive business performance. And if it is not, then the failure of DEI initiatives are imminent. And that's where we would like to create a brand reputation for any organization. And whichever I worked with as a talent management and leadership development expert, or any other expertise within HR, which I've showcased as part of my job, even if DI or it is talent leadership development initiatives or strategies driving, it's important that we drive innovation, creativity. It's important that we drive the bottom line for the organization. It's important that we create that reputation, the pull factor, so that we get the right talent from the market.
Also, Abhishek, diversity and inclusion, it not only drives innovation, but also kind of lay a strong foundation for adapting to technological shifts like automation and AI, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I mean, like to identify what's required in terms of automation and AI, we just continue to reshape how we look at a job role, how we look at businesses. There has been a lot of change in the industry. So as we talk about Industry 4.0, we talk about organization. There is a shift in the skills needed for future. We are looking at a large scale skill gap across the organization. I was also talking to the government officials across who work around policy that how is AI is going to bring in the level of skill gap. Like in the organizations, there are people who are using AI, and then there are people who are not even aware about what is an AI. Even those who are using AI could actively use only 10 to 15% maximum what is available and what is through their understanding. So we're looking at a large scale skill gap when it comes to making these C-level changes and which is happening across AI and generative AI. We are looking at how do we upskill such stuff, right? We are looking at how do you reskill them?
Mm.
And what about the skill sets which will not be utilized in the future? Like for an example, purely like in banking, Gartner report says 80% of the banking jobs are going to go in next 5 to 6 years, which is primarily around documentation, which is primarily around making and checking, right? And if those jobs are no more there, how do you and where do you utilize such resources into? They would still be required, right, to train the machine on do these automated tests and make decisions. But we would need then someone who is a more technically enabled resource, right?
Yeah.
We would need more of a techno bankers for an if I take example of a bank. We would need more of a techno HR professional for an example, right?
Mm.
Because repetitive jobs within HR are going to go away. Let's take an example of another field. Let's take an example of finance. All that work which is being currently done by finance in terms of making balance sheets, reporting cost, doing budgeting, all of that. And if that can be done by machine, we are talking about a large scale exodus. Mm, we're talking about skills which will no more be relevant, will be done by machine tomorrow. Accounting can be done by machine. And all you need to do is maybe 2 to 3 resources, training the machine to prepare these reports. And all of these reports, like even analytics, what we do in HR and finance, including making balance sheets and reports and all of that, is all on the lag data. And it's all about as much as how do you train a machine, and these can be done.
Mm.
So we are looking at the fields even getting blur and blur from the we are looking at departments who will no more be required,
Yeah.
and the jobs will be done by a AI engine, for an example. So a lot of career transition will be required,
Mm.
a lot of career counseling, a lot of job rotation, a lot of career paths needs to be remapped.
Mm.
And trust me, when I talk about all of this, I am a professional in org development and around talent and leadership development, and I'm also seeing that how the learning platforms, those who are more AI enabled, could be used in the future.
Mm. So each and every department actually has to embrace technology, like in almost everything, and that too maintaining a long-term perspective on what changes are about to come.
Precisely, and you rightly said that. How are we prepared for it in next 3 to 4 years? The time is running short. We call it
True.
we call it a gray rhino situation. We've all been through COVID, which is primarily a black swan event, that suddenly happens and everything goes back. This is a gray rhino event, and if you, and as the writer says, that these are the changes which we are seeing coming through to us, and some are preparing and some are not, and we could clearly say those who are preparing are going to go a long way through.
So it's going to be learning centric culture, and technology is going to be a very big part of it in the coming years.
Definitely.
It has actually started.
Yes. So where it all started was that how do we steer all of these through various learning interventions, various organizational interventions? How are we looking at creating leaders for tomorrow? How are we looking at adapting and process changes and driving innovation through a culture within the organization? Are we driving more inclusivity? Are we driving an open communication? Are we driving more and more inside out learning, and as well as outside in? Because it is not just about how are we preparing ourselves to change, but it's also how the world outside is changing. Like, no one wants to become a Nokia, right? That you become so blinded by the outside world changes and you continue to evolve internally and you never saw your demise. So looking at level of organization changes, looking at the blurring boundaries. I'll give you an example of a blurring boundaries. I always talk about it in my academic circle, is that if we talk 3 years back, there used to be fintechs and then there used to be banks, right? When we say fintech, those were the ones who were primarily dealing in online element of banking and all. And when we talk about bank, they used to be like registered bank with registered to the central bank or any other country central bank, right? Now we no more hear these terms because there is no boundary, there is no divide between a fintech and a bank. A bank is a fintech and a fintech is a bank right now. So we are looking at merging of industries as well, right? We are looking at organizations like EAND, which is the Etisalat, is calling themselves a technology company and not a telecom company. So there is a large scale, fast moving emergence of technology. There's a large scale emergence of AI. There's a large scale emergence of digitization, which is happening across. And how are we preparing ourselves as an organization and resources and our leaders and our top talents is our preparedness for future.
Well said, Abhishek. And lastly, Abhishek, what are your views on empathy and adaptability in leaders?
So definitely, as nowadays, when we are moving into more of a knowledge workforce, we are looking at organizations, we are looking at teams wherein a lot of time a junior staff or subordinates are much more qualified, are much more advanced compared to their leaders, right? And leaders are all those millennials or even older generation, right? And the newer generation is completely different. How are you going to drive leadership across generation isn't study by itself. And if I will tell you the whole generational leadership management, which is looking at through empathy, through inclusivity, through setting example, staying by the side and behind and not leading from front, is some of the things which everyone is looking at, which everyone is talking about, because all we are driving right now, and as I spoke, there is a change in the talent definition by and large, is to stand by people, to stand by people in the up and down, and to build that amount of trust so that they can give their best for the organization. So it's all about how do you build that trust and belongingness and engagement amongst your staff, and how is my leadership catering to that is very, very important factor.
So it's more about leading by example and rewarding inclusive behavior and encouraging open communication within your workplace.
Precisely. I mean, like as you do all of these, you're gonna create a culture of psychological safety in it.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
gonna
right.
create a culture of being vulnerable. You're gonna create a culture of being empathetic. You're gonna create a culture of being open. And as we become more and more open, inclusive, and belong to the people across, we are going to create higher level of trust and motivation,
Mhm.
which is going to drive the performance of the organization, which is going to drive the agility in the organization to maneuver during the hard and difficult times which we are going through.
Hmm. And fostering growth overall. Right, absolutely, Abhishek. So, in this line, like, what advice would you offer to workplace leaders navigating the complexities of the future of work to ensure that their organizations remain agile, innovative, and people centric?
So as we were discussing these key questions before,
Hmm.
and as I've also discussed some of these elements before, was that preparedness is the key.
Yeah.
So am I prepared for tomorrow? Am I prepared for 6 months down the line? Am I prepared for 6 years down the line? So how am I gonna enable the organization through skill readiness?
Hmm.
How am I flexible in terms of my financial decision making in the organization when it comes to preparedness? That I will be able to allocate
Yeah.
I'll be able to allocate the resources when it
Mm.
comes to agility and ever changing innovation which is coming through.
True.
How I'm going to maneuver in terms of changes which is happening inside the organization
Hmm.
as well as outside the organization, which I said that is my workforce agile to be to be take the shape we want to move ahead with. Are we promoting some kind of a remote work strategy wherein you can get best of the talent from any part of the globe to work for you?
Hmm.
Are we taking more data driven decisions? This is a very important point. When we talk about data, the organizations, primarily the HR, including finance and the other divisions, we work a lot around the lag data, which is what has happened previously. When we see attrition, when we see other factors, we always look at lag data. We never work towards creating some level of lead predictive models. And also from a variables perspective, as we do analytics, how much is my focus towards lead variables than lag variables to take decisions in our areas of work? Mostly, this is going to be a key level change when it comes to database decision making. That am I taking decision on lead data or am I taking decision on lag data? Creating an innovative culture, creating the belongingness, motivation, and engagement to build trust, which I mentioned, to have diverse team, to create meaningful work for individuals is something to drive innovation and change. And as we move more and more digital, from an organization perspective, from customers perspective, how am I how am I creating my high tech to be high touch as well? That means more human approach. Even if we go completely digitized, how is my human connection element across? So when within HR we create employee experiences through these technology, through these advancements of AI and others, how am I bringing that human connection element in that journey? Using AI to our advantage, and humans for decision making.
Hmm.
We are seeing more and more machines taking decision nowadays,
Hmm.
and as we say that machines taking decisions are going to be unbiased, and that's where require a level of governance that how those decision making examples or data sets has been provided to AI. How am I augmenting them? How am I utilizing it to be more beneficial for a larger uh, stakeholders? So governance element is a key. That how am I utilizing these data, how am I utilizing these machines, how I'm going to utilize these decision making for long-term success. So that's where the element of ESG comes through, that how am I gonna impact the environment,
Yeah.
the society, and the governance element across, right? So
Mm.
evolving skill set is also something, which I give example of when we talk about the governance element across. I always talk about that it's not just shareholders who matter to the organization, it's the customers, it's the employee, it is also our suppliers do matter. So how am I engaging with them when it comes to the whole data integration approach? Am I treating them as an individual data entity, or am I treating them more human across? Um, when it comes to
Mm. Fostering business partnerships with all the stakeholders, basically.
precisely, so within HR,
Yeah.
how we do it primarily is that HR is not only HR department's responsibility, it is everyone's responsibility. So if am I as an HR professional uh, equipped to take the organization forward alongside with business? So am I helping them build that skill set as an HR professional? Am I helping them in bring those individuals who are more adaptable? Am I able to create that career flexibility, the career transitions support to the staff, those who are maneuvering around these changes? So HR has to sit next to the business. HR has to be behind the business, holding them back if they fall, and always be partnering with them on an ongoing basis. So partnering role of HR, and I always believe that a business partner should be a 360 HR professional and knows everything and anything around HR, is going to support business in making right decisions for future. So as we see industries merging, we are also seeing disciplinaries merging. So maybe a banking HR or a banker turn HR could support bank move forward much more faster compared to only HR and only banker working in two different silos. Or a retailer who has turned to be a HR. So a retailer and HR who has a multi disciplinary knowledge could be much more successful in 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 building a better organization for tomorrow. So we are seeing the industry's boundaries merging, we are seeing the professional boundaries merging, and it's not a one size fit all, right? It is all about the journey each organization, each individual, and each department and each industry is going to take towards change. It's all about how we are prepared, how we are adapting to the change, how we are more human centric. I would not say people centric, I would say human centric, um, to best navigate through these changes, and thrive and move forward to create and to drive through innovation and create better human connection. So all of this is to the sustainable future for mankind.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about this, slightly moving backward of our conversation, Abhishek. Uh, Technology has come into the picture, and we can see that most of the skills now are taken up by technology, and basically there is a situation of skill obsolescence.
Mhm.
But again, there is one generation of employees who is actually finding it hard to adapt to the technological changes. How can we help that generation?
So I think this goes back a long way, right? I mean, like, if I tell you that there was computers advent, and it was told that those who don't know the computers will get out of the job, right?
Hmm.
Um, at
Hmm.
certain point in time, it happened. Like some people lost their job because there was an advent of computers.
Yeah.
But people got skilled, right? So with time, the people will get reskilled. And the generations who were not knowing computers, like my great grandfathers, would not be there in the workforce in next 20 to 30 years. So I'm just talking
Mm.
example perspective that as the generations move forward, we would see these changes happening automatically and the older generations catching up.
Mm.
But their catching up has to be faster compared to what it was before. So, like when the computer advent happened, we still had 4 to 5 years for everyone to learn.
Yeah.
But when the AI and the data driven advent happening, there are things
So
changing.
you have very less time.
Yeah, there are things changing every day.
Mm.
And and when these changes are happening, we are not equipped to be to manage such amount of change. And trust me, I also believe that it is to the right time that we make these changes across to in the system, in the structures, in the way we deal with our employees are gonna be crucial to prepare ourselves.
So, Abhishek, your answers have been so on point and incredibly insightful. I really appreciate the depth of knowledge that you have brought to the discussion on the future of work and talent management. Thanks for being a part of the podcast today.
Thank you so much. It was nice to share my thought here and look forward to more around specific areas and demystifying future of work.
Sure. Pleasure, Abhishek. Looking forward to having you back for another episode very soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Susmita.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.